Henry is being positioned as the new Abby. The clearest sign starts with his blank stare. Henry is drinking, emotional, and trying to process what Victor told him about Miranda and the man in yellow. Now, that doesn't make Henry dangerous on its own, but then we see him staring at the suit in the post office, and it's a similar trance-like state as to when Ellis first noticed something wrong with Abby. Sophia even says to Henry, "You look troubled." And that moment changes the entire way we should all look at Henry, because Henry is looking at the thing connected to what happened to his family, a memory he wasn't there for, but one he can't seem to get out of his mind. That is where the whole Abby connection comes in. Before the massacre, Ellis noticed Abby staring blankly in the middle of the street. See, he knew something was wrong, and when he asked her about it, Abby connected her stare to a dream she had as a little girl. So from the outside, it may have looked like Abby was staring into nothing, but from Abby's point of view, she may have been reliving something. Similar to Henry reliving the stories of his wife and daughter's death through the yellow suit. So with Abby, the stare connected to childhood. With Henry, the stare connects to trauma. It's different doorways, but the same warning sign. Ellis was so concerned about Abby, he tried to tell Boyd that something was wrong and asked him to stop going into the forest long enough to figure out what was happening to her. Now, that wasn't a small observation, which we know at the time, because Ellis saw a change in his mother, and he understood that it mattered before anyone else did. Similarly, we're already seeing a change in Henry. He's cracking much faster than Abby, which makes sense because her nickname in the military was Iron Abby. But even then, the town eventually got to her. And that's why Sophia's question feels so dangerous. Sophia doesn't connect with Henry via comfort. She connects with him using the same idea that led Abby to attack the residents of Fromville. Sophia then goes on to ask Henry if he's ever wondered if all of this was just a dream. Now remember, Abby also believed the town was a dream. She believed the people there weren't really dying, and once that idea took over, death became a way to wake them up. And that is what made her dangerous, because she didn't think she was murdering people. In her mind, she was saving them. Therefore, Sophia's question isn't innocuous. It wasn't a harmless question. She's planting Abby's core belief inside the most emotionally unstable person connected to Victor. And what makes it hit different is the timing. I mean, Victor had just told Henry everything, and Henry hasn't had a single conversation where he's been okay since then. So Sophia finds him at the lowest point he's been in this entire season, and that's not an accident. And then we have to deal with the Sophia's blood situation, because Sophia cuts her hand at the bar purposely, right? So then Henry turns away to get a clean rag for her, and while his back is turned, she puts her blood directly into his drink. Now, this order of events leapt off the screen for me, because think about it. Sophia puts the blood in the drink. Henry drinks it, and then she asks him if he's ever wondered whether all of this was just a dream. Now, if Sophia had only asked the dream question, we could read the scene as psychological manipulation. similar to what we saw her do with Julie, Kenny, and practically everyone she speaks to. However, recently she's becoming more physical. If you recall, when Marielle envisioned herself chained for the second time in that episode that we saw her have those visions, it's almost as if Sophia grabbed her arm to amplify the effects of the vision that Marielle was having. So now I'm wondering if the blood transfer is something similar, but just escalated. Because you see, now Henry is dealing with two forms of influence at the same time. Sophia put something into Henry's body, and then she put something into his mind. Right? And the show has already trained us to treat blood as a transfer system. I mean, Boyd even mentions Martin in this episode. So, of course, remember when Martin gave Boyd his blood, it wasn't just a vision, it was actually worms. The exact mechanics can still be debated, but the basic rule is clear enough. Blood can carry a condition, a connection, a curse, or some kind of access from one person to another. And in the scenario with Boyd, he was able to use those worms to kill Smiley, even though it was only temporary. But I digress. It was still one of the ways we know that Martin was real. So when Sophia puts blood in Henry's drink, the show is using a technique it already taught us. Of course, that doesn't mean we know the exact effects of this blood yet, right? The confirmed part is just the act itself, right? The blood could be marking him, make him easier to influence, open some sort of channel between him and another entity, or infect him with something. But whatever the effect is, the blood happens before Sophia asks the dream question. That order is important because the blood may be what makes the idea stick. And this is where Henry's story becomes more useful than Abby's story. See, with Abby, we saw the ending. We saw her in the street, holding a gun, telling people death would wake them up. Then we saw Boyd forced to kill his own wife to save his son, Ellis. What we didn't see was every step in the method that got her there, how the dream idea got into Abby's head. We didn't see whether she was influenced directly or whether the belief grew from pressure, some sort of memory, isolation, or whatever else the town was doing to her at the time. With Henry, though, the show may be slowing that process down. Henry may not be repeating Abby's story exactly, but I believe he's showing us the part of Abby's story we never got to see. And that raises a bigger question. Why Henry? At first, this looks like every other Sophia interaction. She's prying, feigning ignorance, making conversation, seeing what she can pull out of whoever's in the room. That's the pattern she used with Julie, with Kenny, and practically everyone she's spoken to since she arrived. But then Henry starts talking. Miranda, Eloise, Victor still being here after 40 years. And something shifts. Because what Henry just handed her wasn't just small talk. It's a direct line to the one person in Fromville who's been carrying the town's buried history longer than anyone. And that's when Sophia goes back to the broken glass that she noticed when she first walked in. And then she cuts herself. which means the blood wasn't the plan walking in. It was a response to what Henry told her. Therefore, Henry didn't walk into a trap, he talked himself into one. And this is worth sitting with for another reason. Because if Sophia needed Henry to tell her about Victor before she acted, that suggests something that I've been saying for a while, that the man in yellow doesn't appear to be all-knowing. And that connects directly to the most dangerous part of Henry's story, his promise. When Henry tells Victor it's his job to protect him now, that sounds beautiful, because Victor's been alone for most of his life. But in Fromville, we know that love can become dangerous when the wrong belief gets attached to it. That's what happened with Abby. Her love for her family, it didn't disappear when she snapped. It got folded into the dream logic. She believed death was mercy. She believed killing people was waking them up. So if Sophia can attach that same belief to Henry's need to protect Victor, that promise becomes something much darker. And if Henry believes the town is a dream, freeing Victor may not mean keeping him alive. It may mean waking him up. Boyd and Ellis both lived through Abby's massacre. So if anyone should recognize the danger of someone being handed Abby's exact logic, it's them. But neither of them are in that room. They don't see the blood go into the drink, nor do they hear the dream question being asked to Henry. And that's exactly how Fromville works. It doesn't only attack people physically, it separates information and makes sure the person who knows one part of the danger is never standing next to the person who needs the warning the most. Now, before episode 6 dropped, I put a poll up asking which episode 5 clue changed this cycle the most, and 111 of you voted. 53% said Jade seeing his past lives, and episode 6 may have validated every single one of those votes. Because by the end of the episode, Boyd takes a sledgehammer to the wall in the basement of Colony House, and there's the door. The exact door Jade described from his mushroom trip. And that matters because Jade's vision is no longer just a strange hallucination or another piece of symbolic Fromville nonsense. The town has now attached one of Jade's memories to a real physical location. So if the door is real, then everything Jade saw behind it has to be taken more seriously too. The bones, the tunnels, the children, all of it. Boyd is now standing in front of a confirmed entrance, and for the first time, the town is in a position to act on information Jade has been trying to get people to believe for a while now. 25% of you picked Tabitha using the totem as what changed this cycle the most, and episode 6 extends that thread in a direction nobody saw coming. Roger is dead, and his body was found sewn up to resemble a doll with buttons on his eyes and his lips stitched shut. These are the same dolls Tabitha fought off at the settlement, and the same system she disrupted when she used the totem to take one down. The connection is hard to ignore because it looks like Tabitha destroyed a vessel, and whatever controls that system is already building its replacement. So yes, the totem works, but episode 6 also makes the cost of using it feel much bigger. Breaking one piece of the mechanism doesn't break the whole thing. It may just force the town to rebuild the piece using someone else. And Roger's body may be the show making that point as clearly as it possibly can. 14% of you picked Victor showing Kenny the Man in Yellow drawing as what changed this cycle the most. And in episode 6, this is where that thread starts paying off because people are finally talking to each other. Boyd and Kenny sit down with Victor and they go through what he remembers about the man in yellow, including the car, whether he arrived alone, and where the car ended up. Victor tells them enough that Boyd asks to go see it in person. Now that's a major shift because Victor's memories have always been one of the biggest locked boxes in the show, right? He knows things, but most of that information has stayed trapped inside his trauma, his drawings, and the way he processes the past. Now that information is moving. Boyd has it, Kenny has it, and that means the town is finally starting to treat Victor's memories like evidence instead of just pain. The comment section has been asking for a town meeting for weeks now, and while episode 6 isn't quite that, it's the closest thing we've seen to the puzzle pieces actually being in the same room. Be sure to vote in the new poll linked in the pinned comment below.